What's up, guys? The final score back again tonight, and we're planning on going live tonight. And but we Matthew has had some technical difficulties, and got my buddy Steve Hill from Northeast Academy guy. He's here tonight. We were gonna do our top five NFL touchdown celebrations. I don't know. Steve's having a little. Am I breaking up on you now, Steve?
I can hear. Let me try turning it off my car speaker. See if that works.
Okay. All right. So we're planning on doing that tonight if things go well. If Steve can't hear me, then we're probably not going to be able to go live. We'll probably have to reschedule for another night.
All right,
Uh,
much better. I can hear you clear as a bell now.
okay. Okay. Good. So Matthew is like I said having some. Matter of fact, Matthew is texting me right now. Hold on one second. I apologize, guys. We're going to get this done. All right. So first off, Steve's been on my other podcast a couple times, so he's getting close to being a Tom Hanks of the final score and on the fly the five timer club. So yeah, he's one of the few. I think Steve has actually been a guest more than anybody up here now. So
Man, I think this is my third or fourth time.
this is your third, I think, because we did a couple.
That's
Uh,
right. This is third.
we did a couple. So you're in the lead right now. There's a couple behind that you were tied with, and now you've gone ahead. So Steve
All
is
right.
a big supporter of the show. We appreciate Steve coming on. We matter of fact, me and Steve had an eventful week. Matter of fact, a week ago tonight,
It was.
me and
Yeah.
me and Steve uh were at the Northeast Academy alumni basketball game. We attempted to get out there and show we still had it. Whew, yeah, I was the oldest out there. Steve was we. You know, the thing about it was they did odds versus evens, odd years graduate versus even years, and it seemed like the even years, all the even year guys uh, were the young guys. All the odd ones were the older
Yeah.
guys.
A lot
But-
younger.
And all the guy the even were tall too. And we were
Yeah.
we had a pretty good squad. We ended up unfortunately dropping that game, but you know, we're already making plans next year to get revenge on those guys. We want the same teams next year. We want revenge on those guys. So
Right.
watch out, guys. Um, how did you feel the next day, Steve? Because look, now this is the ultimate warrior right here. I'll give Steve credit. Steve, the last time Steve played in the alumni game, he tears both his meniscus. How
Yep.
how many years ago was that?
That was. Let's see. I think it was it 2013 maybe because I think I had surgery in 2015 for the last time.
So 8 years ago, after having surgery, he comes back to the scene of the crime. He got more guts than I do because I probably would say, you know what? No, it ain't worth it. But Steve, yeah, Steve got out
Nothing.
there and did it.
Nothing. Nothing broken this time. So all good.
We did check on him the next day to make sure he was okay. Everybody, I would look. I'll tell you what. I've got a routine with these things. Whenever I do something like that, Tylenol before, Tylenol after, and the next
Uh,
day when I woke up, I could tell I'd done something, but it didn't last long. So we were
yeah.
good. Not bad for a 49-year-old geezer. But anyway, tonight NFL top five NFL TD celebrations, and Matthew has gave me his list, and he apologizes for not being able to be here. But we'll go over Matthew's list as well as we go along. He's really wanted to be here to do this. First of all, talking about some headlines. Caleb Love, ex North Carolina guard, enters the transfer portal about a week or so ago. Announced today that he is officially transferred to Michigan. Um, somebody put up there that he would probably average 22 points at Michigan. I don't know about
No.
that.
Too
Caleb
streaky.
Caleb Love was inconsistent. He made one of the shots that will go down in UNC history last year, but just inconsistency. And this year, I don't know. He probably hurt his draft chances this year by not going last year. He should have went last year, but it is what it is. He's moving on. We're moving on. What do you think, Steve?
Somebody said it shortly after he entered the portal. I can't remember if I saw it on Twitter or if I heard it, but I mean, the guy had the green light at UNC. Where else are you going to have? I mean, basically, what can you get that's better? Are there
Yep.
other schools that are in better position? Sure, but are you going to get the green light to shoot every time there? Probably not.
Well, he
Um,
definitely he took advantage of that green light for sure this year.
and there's a guy coming in next year, Simon Wilcher. That I don't know if maybe Hubert Davis got in his ear and said, "Hey, this guy's going to push you for minutes," and I don't know what happened there, but Davis back, Baycott back. I think it's gonna be a telling year for Hubert Davis for sure.
Yeah. You think any of the comments on social media after the season was over may have affected Love's decision?
You know, I mean, we got to realize that he's just I say a kid, and I mean that respectfully because I'm
Yeah.
45. So they're
Yeah.
kids to me. In a perfect world, he's not looking at social media, but let's be honest, they all are, I'm sure. And
Oh yeah.
you either got to stay off of it or have really thick skin, I think, to be any type of celebrity, whether it's sports or whatever.
I agree.
And there were some harsh comments,
It really was. It really was.
and
I had
so maybe just for him and his family, maybe he just needed a fresh start, and hopefully he does well, unless he plays Carolina. But we'll
yeah.
see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
We wish him well, because like I said, he was involved in a great run last year. That team get to the national championship game, coming up 3 points short against Kansas, but two games that will forever live in North Carolina history. The big win, the last Coach K's last home game at Cameron, we knock them off, and then end it in the Final Four for Duke, and yeah, we'll always remember that.
Right.
Looking at some other stuff here, LSU finally comes back and accepts Joe Biden's invitation to the White House. Um, you know, I don't know. I see what Miss Biden was trying to do, but with inviting Iowa as well. But I agree with somebody that said this is always an honor that's gone to the national championship winner, not to. This is kind of like, okay, you get a participation trophy. You don't. I just think, and I think it may have ticked off the LSU players a little bit to the fact that, hey, we beat them. This is our honor, not theirs. They
Right.
had and the whole. And let me tell you another thing while we're on that. The whole thing with taunting. You played in several basketball games. You played in football games. That stuff is going to happen. The Clark girl did it. I mean, everybody sees the girl from LSU doing this, and maybe she did it longer and did the whole ring thing. It's part of the game. Don't come down on her just because she did it, got caught on camera doing it. I mean, she didn't get caught. I mean, that's part of the game. It happens all the time. You may not see it all the time, but there's no need to come down on this girl because she did that. If you watch any game, there's going to be something that goes on like that all the time. I don't know how you feel about it, Steve, but that's the way I feel about it.
Stevie, I don't have an issue with it. Like you said, it's part of the game. Just as a someone who's played at not a very high level.
Me either.
I I would have liked to have seen her do that in the heat of the game, not when you're up 22 points and with 5 seconds. Anybody. But I think the media just blew it out of proportion. I think I'm not a huge fan of the Bidens, but I don't think it was. First of all, it wasn't Joe Biden that said it. It was
it was his wife. Yeah.
And I honestly think it was the cheerful old grandma that said, "Let's give everybody a
Yeah, yeah,
participant trophy," and we as coaches and former players at a high school level, that's not what we want to teach our kids, in my opinion. About hey, if you lose, you hold your head up high, you congratulate the winner, and
that's
you go
right.
and you cheer. I won't get into this, but I think there were some things in the media that were twisted that probably weren't the intent
Imagine
of
that.
Joe
Imagine.
Biden. And again, I'm not a Biden apologist, but I'm also a realist. I don't think there was any ill will there. I don't think there was
No,
anything than hey, let's be nice to the losers. Would she have invited LSU if the tables had been turned? We can only speculate. And I think something like that's just best left not to speculate, because then you get two camps that have different opinions and nobody knows for sure. So I think it's LSU deserved to win. That it wasn't close. It was a blowout.
yeah,
Let them go to the
exactly.
White House like they deserve, and both girls will be back next year. Let's see if they can do it again.
Yep. See if we can see a rematch. And to me, and now people will talk about the men's championship game. Of course, Connecticut beat San Diego State, and not a close game either there.
Right.
Uh, Talking about the national championship games, the women's uh, Final Four was more exciting than the men's, and I agree. I mean,
Agreed.
you had the last second shot San Diego State hit against Florida Atlantic, but overall the women put on a show this year in the big dance, and I was more impressed with the women this year. And if people are saying, well, it's because you had so many uh, lower seeds getting there, but hey, that's why
That's
you
great.
play.
Yeah.
That's why you play. It
Absolutely.
they are playing that just like that number one seed is. They want to get to the championship just like those number one seeds do. So don't give me that crap. I mean, that's just nothing to do with it. But it's just a different kind of ball game now in the men's side, I think.
Yeah. I mean, hey, hats off to all the women for making it a interesting tournament, a really fun, especially Final Four. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't watch much women's basketball up until this tournament, and I probably should have, because the women, I still think the women play it the right way,
Yeah,
fundamental basketball. And let's be honest, Caitlin Clark shooting it from half court with ease, that's going to bring some eyes. I don't care if it's man, woman, child. She's a dominant player. And then you get to see LSU. Everybody probably came into it looking to see Caitlin Clark, and we found out LSU's a really, really good team as well. So it was a good Final Four.
yeah. LSU just Caitlin Clark is probably the standout player in NCAA women's basketball, but LSU had the team, the better
Right.
team that was on it. But yeah,
And I would
definitely.
even say that Caitlin Clark is probably the best player in college basketball, men or women. I
Yeah,
mean, let's be
I
honest.
agree. That name one outstanding player in men's basketball right now that's been consistent all year.
Yeah, I mean, I can name some people because I hear them in the headlines, but I mean, gosh, yeah, Caitlin Clark's just dominant.
Yeah, yeah. And then she taking out South Carolina. That was big. I mean, because
Yeah,
South Carolina hadn't lost all year, kind of like the UNLV of what 1990, 91 or
91. Yeah,
91. Yeah, Larry Johnson, Stacey Augman,
right,
Anderson Hunt getting taken out by Duke. And let me tell you about that. There's a reason why I didn't mind Duke back then.
right,
I've told the story why I don't care for Duke, and I don't want to get into that right now. Duke cost me a lot of money. I was in a pool at Overton's in Greenville had a pool. This was a lot of money. All UNLV had to do was win, and the money was mine. I mean, it didn't matter who won the national championship game.
right.
All they had to do was win, and it was over. And
It,
they could those Dukies come back and do it. Yeah, Robert Matthews. Yeah, he's in here talking about sponsor etiquette with that drink, sir. Yeah, I'm holding up a drink here. We're going to talk about a local group, Hometown Nutrition in Ahoskie. You want to go over there and check them out. They got your energy teas. They got your protein shakes. Great ladies over there. They do a great job. Me and my daughter were in there today. I got the Easter special today. You see they right up there on your thing. The jelly bean, which is it's really good. I don't know if Steve, you ever get a chance to go by there when you're in a hospital or somewhere, check them out. They're pretty good. They've got some great drinks in there and some great protein shakes. Well, I haven't had the protein shakes. I'm just I don't need I don't need any more anything up here on the stomach right now, but I like to eat some meat or something like that. But the energy teas are good. Robert Matthews, I know that's got to be you. It just says Facebook user, but I know it's got to be Robert Matthews. Um, so looking at
Robert Matthews as well.
you know Robert, don't you?
Oh yeah, Pirate Radio.
Yes, yes. He we actually had the other night we were on, and Kyle from LaGrange came in.
Yeah,
Kyle Barber, a big time supporter of the show, and Kyle just got through with his chemo treatments, and we've been praying for Kyle. And Kyle's
congratulations, Kyle.
yes, a big step. Unfortunately lost his mom around the same time. We sent our prayers for him for that, and Kyle seems to be doing the best he can right now, and we send out our prayers for Kyle.
Pray for you, Kyle.
Uh, the Titans. Is Derrick Henry on the trading block? You think?
You know, maybe. Running backs have a finite shelf life this day, especially one that runs 300 times a year. Um, I I tell you, if they trade him, they're definitely on the rebuilding path.
Yeah.
Not sure why they kept Ryan Tannehill, especially at that contract. Um,
Well, do you think there's nobody behind him? I mean,
well,
when you drafted Malik Willis last year,
yeah,
but you had no confidence in him the end of the year when Tannehill gets hurt to put in a game that would have clinched the division for you. You signed a quarterback off a practice squad 2 weeks before,
right.
Josh Dobbs, and
And
put
started.
him in starting over Willis. So what
Yeah.
kind of message is that sending to Willis?
Well, I think if you follow the NFL,
Uh-oh.
there we go.
There you
Um, yeah, I had a phone call. Sorry. I think if you follow the draft, if you follow college football, you know that Willis was not a polished passer at all coming out of Liberty.
go.
Very raw, uh, fantastic athlete, without a doubt. Um, but it tells me that he still needs some work on his mechanics, at least at the NFL level. And he did, that competition at Liberty is not the same as competition in SEC.
No.
Let's be honest. Doesn't mean that he can't be a great quarterback. It just means
He's
they
got a lot of work to do.
absolutely.
Yep. People were coming in unfairly to him all through the draft. Before the draft last year, people were just, anointing him as the next great thing, and he was going to step right in. That doesn't happen a lot with these rookie quarterbacks, and
Right.
unfortunately nowadays, the rookie quarterback has a shorter window than what they used to have. I mean, take for instance a Troy Aikman, number one draft pick for the Cowboys, and has a rough first year, a mediocre second year. That the third year now he's got control of. He's got weapons around him. He knows what he's doing. He's got that experience. But now you have a rookie quarterback that has a rough first year, and they're already talking about, okay, we need to look at another quarterback. So there is a
Right.
shorter window on an NFL quarterback these days than what it used to be.
Absolutely.
So if you're gonna take a quarterback like a Malik Willis, you're gonna have to and whatever you want to call it, but it's going to be more of a project than anything. It's going to take time to get him to that competition level, like you said, in the NFL. It's a lot different than playing what the opponent's Liberty played.
Right.
But we'll see. He's still there, and he's going to be there. So Tannehill just, it seems like he's diminishing as the years go by. And I know he's getting older, and injuries are probably having an effect on him. But yeah, I'm like you. If I'm the Titans, I'm looking at a better backup. You want a veteran backup to be able to step in,
Right.
and not Josh Dobbs. No offense to Josh Dobbs, but he just doesn't have the experience because he spent many years on the Steelers bench holding a clipboard behind Roethlisberger and even in street clothes on the practice squad with Pittsburgh.
Right.
Um, but yeah, they signed defensive tackle Jeffrey Simmons today to a 4-year, $94 million contract extension and guaranteed $66 million. So it makes me think, this may be the start of what you say, maybe a rebuilding era in Tennessee if they're giving him that money. Uh, and they've got a lot of problems on offense. They don't have the weapons on offense that they had. Henry is pretty much you stop Henry, you stop Tennessee, and that was
Right.
proven the last half of the year with their downfall from where they started off red hot the first half of the year. Second half of the year, not so much. But you stop Henry, you stop Tennessee, and they need to get some weapons. Maybe they're looking at the draft, but I don't know. He's the second highest paid defensive tackle in the NFL, only behind Aaron Donald. Um, yeah, I mean, you're still going to need weapons on offense. So Tennessee's got to make some moves.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, to me, it started when they traded away A.J. Brown at the draft last year. Because
Big
I can't
mistake.
name, I mean, I know Robert Woods. I can't name another Tennessee tight receiver without having to think real hard, and I probably couldn't do it then.
Yeah, I couldn't either. I mean, let me look. Let's look up their depth chart because I'm interested to see.
Well, yeah, they did. They drafted the guy last year, Traylon Burks. I know him, but I mean,
Was he? I mean, he's not really
yeah,
a household name. I mean,
no,
he's a rookie, but he's not really okay. Wide receiver, Traylon Burks, like you said, he's on the starters. Nick Westbrook Akeen. I hope I'm saying that right. Never heard of
I
him.
think he's a rookie or a second year guy too.
Kyle Phillips. They've got three wide receivers, and then your backups are Racy McMath, Reggie Robertson Jr., and Mason Kinsey.
So I guess they didn't re-sign Robert Woods. He must have been.
Robert Woods ended up going to gosh, who did he go to? Didn't he didn't he have an injury already? I want to
Maybe.
I want to say Robert Woods. Uh,
Well, he was injured when he was with the Rams, and then I think they trade him to Tennessee. I can't remember. Maybe he went as a free agent. I can't remember.
he's with the Texans now.
Okay, maybe I'm getting the Texans and the Titans confused.
He's with the Texans now. And I
Okay,
want to say, let me see if it says anything about this up here. I know the injury. No, he hasn't got hurt. It was there's another receiver that tore ACL the other day. And I can't remember. He just went to another team. Yeah, he signed a 2-year contract with the Texans. So
okay,
he's not in Tennessee. He was in Tennessee last year. He was traded to the Titans for a 6th-round pick. So,
right.
and then the Titans released him before in February of this year. But let's talk about you're a Washington fan. Let's talk about the whole ownership deal, Daniel Snyder, and there's a lot of talk. There's two qualifying offers that met what they wanted: a $6 billion offer on the table from two different bidding groups. One that has Magic Johnson as one part of the group. I think that's the Josh Harris group, and I can't remember the other guy. I think it's a Canadian guy that's in the second group. A lot of talk about this will be done before the draft. How do you feel about this going forward with Washington?
Uh, the sooner the better.
yeah, yeah,
Honestly, and I don't say that half-heartedly. I mean, I think as an organization, um, the last few years it's been hard to get quality free agents to even consider Washington because they know what kind of organization we have. Our stadium is maybe the worst in the NFL. At the time it was built, it was the flagship stadium,
yeah,
and it's degrade. The field is awful. It's way too big. I think we had the lowest fan attendance of any NFL team. And when you consider, sorry to you fans out there, the Jags, the Texans, uh, that's pretty bad for a franchise that is, as storied as we are. But yeah, to me, the sooner the better, Stevie. Once we get rid of Snyder, I don't care who gets it, as long as they, just sign the checks and hire somebody who knows what they're doing football wise. I'm ready to move on from this terrible chapter in our history.
Yeah, I think, like you said, for Washington, the sooner the better. I think once this happens, you're going to see that attendance is going to change. I mean, it's going to be like ding dong, the witch is dead.
Yeah,
And, and there's going to be excitement again in Washington. I know Lynn Bryant has made it clear that he wants the day that it happens. We're having a emergency final score podcast, and he is going to be in charge of it. It's going to be all
there you
about that sale. So he's been waiting for years for this to happen, and hopefully, it looks like it's going to be a done deal. Who gets it, I don't know, but it looks like it's a done deal, and Snyder's on the way out. Thank
I'm
God.
ready.
I'm not. I'm a Pittsburgh fan, but my rest of my family pretty much are Washington fans. So I've followed Washington over the years. If they won't play in Pittsburgh, I pull for Washington. But uh,
Right.
the way it's gotten over the last decade is terrible. I mean, there's when you think they're on the on a trend going upward, something happens with Snyder, and it kind of gets the whole deal down. And I think they've got the pieces in place. Actually, on both sides of the ball now, I think Washington has the pieces in place where it was defense before. You've got, and that all depends on Sam Howell, how Sam Howell does. I think it's his job to lose. He's going to have to compete for it. I don't think Jacoby
Yeah.
Brissett is going to be he's a good backup quarterback. He's a good plan B, but Sam Howell's got a chance to be something in the NFL, and we'll see what happens when this year. Ron
Yeah.
Rivera. Ron Rivera has a lot. I love Ron Rivera. Loved him at Carolina, and loved him. This past year at Washington, he kind of let me down with the whole, not knowing that with them losing that
Oh
day and
God.
Green Bay winning, that they were out of the playoffs. Keeping
Thank
Carson keeping Carson Wentz in the game as long as he did that game, it was ridiculous.
Well, why would you even start him to begin with? That
What
to me,
Taylor Heinicke? I'll tell you this, and people may disagree with me. Taylor Heinicke did a great job with that
oh yeah,
Washington team. I mean, he was the one that got them in playoff contention. Uh, he took chances. Yeah, he's a gunslinger. He says it. He's out of that mold of Brett Favre. Brett Favre was his idol. So he's going to try to do things. And does it always work? No. He had a bad quarter against San Francisco, one of the top defenses in the NFL by far. And you're going to bench him after that for Carson Wentz for paper MVP?
yeah.
Don't tell me that, dude.
You
Jeez.
know, I often said that if Taylor Heinicke had Carson Wentz's arm, he'd be a top 10 quarterback.
Yeah.
He
I mean,
just doesn't have the arm strength needed to make quote every throw in the NFL, and a lot of underthrown balls. I mean, a lot of miscues, and that cost us. But the guys on the team wanted to play for Taylor Heinicke. And
that's it. That was my
when
next line right there.
yep, when you have the respect of your teammates, they'll do anything for you. And not saying Carson Wentz didn't have it, but those guys wanted. I mean, they wanted Heineke to be the guy. Um, and yeah, with Sam Howell, if Jacoby Brissett starts for any other reason than Sam Howell's hurt, we're in trouble.
Yeah,
We're in trouble.
I agree. I agree. Hey, I don't know if you remember, how quick Taylor Heineke got that respect. The first year he was starting that playoff game against Tampa Bay. I just
Oh
remember
yeah,
Terry McLaurin was mic'd up, and I think Heineke made that run that got to the end zone, and McLaurin said, "That's my quarterback there. That's my
Yep,
quarterback. That's number 4." So he got that respect quick, and I think they
absolutely.
gave I didn't like Rivera's choices, the way he did things with that quarterback situation last year. You
Yeah.
got a guy with Heineke that was, yeah, you said the arm strength, but you're going to bring in, and I know maybe Rivera didn't. I don't know how much he had to say in this. I'm assuming it was more than a little bit. Bringing a guy like Carson Wentz in, which I thought was a huge, huge mistake. You could have used that money to get another weapon on offense instead of and I'm gonna say it, paper MVP, overrated. Ever since that injury that year in Philadelphia where he was having that MVP season, he has not been the same. And
Yeah.
it goes to show you when he's been with the Colts with his former quarterback coach as head coach Frank Reich, and Frank Reich got rid of him after a year, and then you send it. Why do they keep paying this guy insane amounts of money with no production?
Well, and I'll tell you, I wasn't angry that they brought him in. I was more, I wouldn't say angry, more confused that they brought him in. Number one, they gave up draft picks when they could have they were going to release him.
Yeah,
Number two, it was $28 million. His entire salary was a cap hit, which, if you sign him to a $28 million cap contract and, 12 or 15 of it's on your cap, okay, but 28 million on your cap
that's a
for a
lot.
guy that was about to get released. I didn't even mind them trying him out, but when it was clear he wasn't the guy, why you go back to him? It's
In a
beyond.
key game, in a key game.
Yeah, and Ron Rivera, I mean, I like him. He's a great guy, but he's on the hot seat because when this
Yes.
new owner comes in, he's not their guy. So he's going to have to prove it, and they're going to be quick to get rid of him if they don't do well this season.
Yep.
And I don't blame them. You
Yeah,
know,
I don't either. I love Rivera, but
yeah,
you gotta do something this year.
right.
So let's get right to our main event. We've talked all
Let's do
the
it.
so we're gonna do top 5 NFL TD celebrations, and there's a lot. And my list, I had some individual celebrations, but I also had a couple of celebrations over the years that multiple that teams are that particular team is known more for. It
Okay.
happened more than once, but it was with that same team. It's kind of like their tradition. Uh, I'll tell you this: one of the teams they don't do it anymore. I think it's kind of outlawed now. I don't know why. Well, it couldn't be outlawed now because they're doing some of this other stuff. It can be, but uh, we got 5, and we'll talk about. I've got some honorable mentions up here too as well, and we'll let you lead off with your number 5.
All right. Well, number five for me, it was like you said, it was hard to narrow them down because there's been so many great ones, and
Yeah.
especially since they've eased up on the rule the last couple of years. But number five for me is from way back in 2002 against Seattle, and it was T.O. with the Sharpie autographing the football. Uh, that was, that was back when it was. Was it? I don't remember if it was a flaggable offense then, or if it became a flaggable offense shortly
I think that
after. And
kind of
it,
led to it. I think that because I wanted to say I know Joe Horn got flagged for his and
yeah,
fine, but I wanted to say TOs didn't get flagged, but maybe I'm wrong on that. But yeah,
that
I
could be.
remember watching that night.
Yeah, I mean it was. I mean innovative, funny. If you're a fan of the other team, you can call it disrespectful, showboat. But I mean, let's be honest with for 2002 especially, that was pretty innovative. And I'm not a To fan per se, but I respect him. I thought it was funny.
Yeah, I mean, I like you said, you took the words right out of my mouth. Uh, that I'm not a To fan by any means, but yeah, he he was innovative. I don't know if he'll come up anymore on your list or not, and but there's a couple of
Yeah,
To celebrations that could be in the top 5 and some honorable mentions as well. Um, and probably some of the Dallas Cowboys won't like, but
Right.
that day that happened. But okay, number 5 for you, T.O. Sharpie. Okay, another controversial wide receiver around that time too, but just as talented as T.O. was at. He started off as Chad Johnson. He went through several name changes, Ocho Cinco, and whatever else he was, but he would come up with some innovative stuff as well. And he's still having an effect on touchdown celebrations. If you watch the Bengals this year, he had an effect on that, social media saying they should do a touchdown celebration with the coin toss, and they did it. And, they ended up getting penalized for it and flat. I'm sure they got fined for it. But Chad Johnson scores a touchdown, runs down the sideline, finds a cheerleader, proposes. Uh,
Yeah.
just one of the many things Chad Johnson would do, or Ocho Cinco, whatever you want to call him. Uh, like you said, very original, creative. Who would have thought? We're going to see a wide receiver score a touchdown and go propose to a cheerleader. Now, it wasn't a real proposal. We know that.
Right.
But the fact that he did it and that girl, that cheerleader was just in shock. Looking at the video of it, you can see she was just in shock that he was doing something like that. But, say what you want to. T.O. and him were two controversial wide receivers, but it was fun to watch to see what they were going to do next. A lot of people watched just to see what those two would do next, whether it was popcorn or something else. I think no, that was Steve Smith that did that. We may talk about that later on. But yeah, number 5 for me is Chad Johnson proposing.
All right. That's a good one.
All right. Number 4 for you.
Number 4, we touched on it just a second ago, but 2003 against the New York Giants, Joe Horn lifting up the padding on the goalpost and grabbing, I don't know if you remember, grabbing a flip phone and
Yes.
making a phone call.
Before the smartphones.
Yeah, another one that, I would have never thought of in a million. I mean, there's so many different ones that are, dances and whatever, but grabbing a flip phone, especially for that day and age when, now everybody, over the age of 12 or 13's got a cell phone, but back then it wasn't that way. So, he definitely got flagged for that. I remember.
Yes. Yes.
And that was a year after the T.O. Sharpie. So maybe, like you said, maybe that Sharpie incident was what
That
prompted to look at the flagging.
Yeah, that was anytime you use props after TO did the Sharpie thing, you got flagged and fined. I'll go ahead and tell you that was my number 3. Uh,
Okay.
so we'll go ahead and talk about that. Michael Lewis, you remember Michael Lewis was
Yeah.
another receiver. He helped Horn grab it. And like you said, flip phone under the pads on the uprights. He pretended to make a call. And like they're saying, the TO and the Sharpie was earlier. He was still fined $30,000 for the celebration.
Which is like finding you and I $10.
Yeah, exactly. He was like laughing at that. That was, and that night, a lot of people don't realize, but Horn had a pretty good game, 133 yards and 4 touchdowns in a 45-7 blowout. So, yeah, I mean, that's one of them you'll never forget as well. It's a little bit higher on my list at number 3, but yeah, the flip phone thing. Now the kids will probably look at that like, Lord, he had a flip phone. And that was pretty big for his time because everybody didn't have cell phones at that time.
Absolutely.
But okay, so my number 4, and this is going to go way back. This is going to go way back to 1988.
I know where you're going with this. It's my next one.
So, I'm not a big Cincinnati Bengals fan, but this year this was kind of like, I don't know, the big fad that year. The Bengals had a good year. This running back comes out of nowhere, starts having a big year for the Bengals, and ends up having to do it on the sidelines because he was getting flagged for it. Because this was when celebrations had really been cracked down on because of Steve's team. But the Icky Shuffle, Icky Woods, and if you've ever seen it before, it's a awkward looking dance, but he
Yeah.
told his mom if he scored a touchdown, he was going to do it, and he ended up doing it. Got flagged, so he started going on the sidelines to do it after the game, and it was called on. Everybody loved it. So the Icky Shuffle, and then years later, who would know he would be getting cold cuts, and I can get some cold cuts doing the Icky Shuffle. So
Right. And you
he
still
did
see
it the
players
first
today
time.
doing it on again.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He did it the first time against the Cleveland Browns, September 25th, 1988. And he did a simpler version then, and then he got some help from his teammates to, I guess they kind of choreographed a better version of the Icky Shuffle. We did it next time. But yeah, the Icky Shuffle is my number 4. And people still do it. I mean, people are still doing it.
Yeah.
Geico commercials. He did it on How I Met Your Mother. They did it there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
My number one. Yeah. It just
number
in the,
1. Wow.
and not because it was necessarily the best one, but it's the first outside, and I didn't want to do the homer pick, the Washington, the high five
The
lead.
Fun Bunch.
Yeah, I didn't want to do that one for the homer pick, but so yeah, that's the first one I remember. Being a national, just a thing, and kids would go in school. You'd come back the next day from school after watching the games, and everybody be doing the Icky
Do the
Shuffle, and
Icky Shuffle.
yeah, yeah.
I
Simple
wonder
dance.
how many.
It's stuck around.
I wonder how many high school football games back in 1988 you saw people do the Icky Shuffle.
Oh, oh man! Every time
I
somebody
don't
scored
remember seeing it at Northeast, but
yeah.
okay. So my number 3. Oh, your number 3. Let's go to your number 3.
All right. My number three is a team celebration. Probably could be higher on the list on a lot of people's lists. So, but I'm going with the Lambeau Leap, baby. I believe, and I could be wrong. I believe it was started by Leroy Butler, if
Yep.
I'm not mistaken.
Yep. You're exactly right.
And and then as a defensive touchdown, and then of course, Packers became famous for it. And honestly, I think most every team does some sort of leap in their own end zone now when they score.
Yeah. Some
Um,
people do. Yeah.
yeah, but I mean, the Lambeau leap was, it's such a simple concept when you think about it now, but nobody was leaping in stands at all. Um, so yeah, number three for me, and again, could be higher. Probably deserves to be higher, but Lambeau leap's my third.
I'll go ahead and tell you it's number 2 for me.
All right.
Yeah, December 26, 1993, against the Raiders. You're exactly right. Randy Jordan gets hit by Leroy Butler, fumbles the ball. Reggie White recovers the ball and tries to run, but he gets held up. And as he was falling out of bounds, he tossed the ball back to Leroy Butler, and the rest is history. But
Absolutely.
the guy that was mostly known for it was that got it popular really was Robert Brooks, who would do it after every touchdown he scored. And it
Yeah.
just became a tradition after that. And now uh, I think it's kind of like the Cubs. The Cubs, if another opposing team hits a home run and you catch it in the stands, you better
You throw
throw
it.
that ball back on the field. You don't keep it. I don't care who it. Now you imagine this though. Let's say somebody. Let's say, gosh, what's his name? Judge. For some reason, there's a interleague game, and Judge is getting ready to set that record like he did last year. He hits a home run at Chicago. Somebody catches it. You think that they're going to throw it back?
No way.
No freaking way.
They can boo me out of the stadium. I'm not
Exactly. They can call me what's that guy, Bartman, or whatever they want to. I'm not throwing that back on the field.
I'll be honest with you. I'm not throwing any home run back on the field if I catch it. They'll just have to boo me. They don't know why. I ain't gonna never see them again. So,
But yeah, they've even turned the Lambeau Leap into like a charity event, a fundraiser event for the Special Olympics.
okay.
Um, if you raised over $1,500, you were given the opportunity to rappel down the side of Lambeau Field and leap, what you would call leap, and take a picture with it. So it's good that the
Wow.
Packers took advantage of that to help charity out. So yeah, my number two is Lambeau Leap. So mine was a little higher. So
Okay.
we've done my number three with Joe Horn,
All right.
and you've got my number two with the Lambeau Leap, and we did your number one with the Icky Shuffle. So
We did.
what's your number two?
My number two is. Have we done your number one?
No, no.
This is probably your number one because I thought about putting it number one. Happened in 2000.
Oh no, this is not my
Oh,
number one.
okay.
No.
This happened against Dallas, and
Yeah, I know what it is.
when he runs to the star and spikes the ball, not once, but twice in the same game.
I
And
remember it.
a guy who is probably only remembered in the NFL for doing this is a guy by the name of George Teague,
George
who
Teague. Yep.
leveled T.O. at that star. You know, it's showboaty, probably disrespectful, but not, not crude. But we're still talking about it. What 23 years later.
Yeah.
So, and probably talking about it in 23 more years. So that's my number two, the T.O. Star Spike.
Two things. Now that didn't make my list, but that is honorable mention. Two things about that. I want to say later in that game, Emmett scored a touchdown
And
and
slammed it
and went
down.
to the star, looked over there at the sidelines and slammed it on the star, looked over there at that sidelines right at T.O.
That's what it was.
Another thing, and I'm not sure how many years later, this guy comes back and plays for the Cowboys. Now, for a Cowboys fan at that time, and that was, you talked about it, maybe showboating, but the Cowboy fans, I know they looked at it as disrespectful.
Oh yeah,
How do
absolutely.
you think these Cowboy fans felt about T.O. coming on that team? He was the one that disrespected our star. But yeah, I mean,
Cowboy fans, man, I'll tell you, and I'm biased, but Cowboy fans are fickle. They can hate your guts one year, and if you sign with them, you're the best thing ever.
you're the best thing
They
since
get
sliced bread.
quick. Yeah,
Yeah, I agree. I
they
agree.
get quick.
Yeah, because they've had some guys come over there that you know were sworn enemies, and all of a
Oh,
sudden, and I've told Cowboy fans, as much as you hate that guy right now, if he was to put that star on his head, you'd love him like that. He was the best thing since sliced bread.
absolutely.
So, all right, so we're down to my number one, and you mentioned this one a little bit earlier. You were actually talking about the first one you remember was the Icky Shuffle. So I'm a little bit older than you. So the first real touchdown celebration I remember was back in 1982. And this is, I'll save you from being the homer since you're a Washington fan. And I'm talking about the Fun Bunch.
Oh yeah,
When Washington was on that roll in 1982, the strike short year, the Fun Bunch came along. You had there was a subgroup of wide receivers called the Smurfs. You had
yeah.
Alvin Garrett, you
Charlie,
had
Charlie,
Charlie
Charlie
Brown,
Brown. Charlie Brown. That's it.
yeah, Virgil Say, and they were like Garrett was 5'7", Virgil Say
Yeah,
was Papa Smurf, he was 5'8", and then Charlie Brown was 5'10". So they were short wide receivers, and they called them the Smurf. But every touchdown, and they would get Rick Walker was a tight end, and
yep,
he would get involved in it. And it was the first time they did it was the first round playoff game against the Lions in 1982, that Super Bowl year. They did the Fun Bunch, and it caught on. Redskins had such a great year that year. Everybody said, well, it was a strike short year, but they had a great year. Everybody was talking about the Cowboys, the whole Cowboy deal, and Redskins take care of them in the AFC Championship game. They do, but one of the most memorable Fun Bunch incidents that I remember, and I want to say it was 1983 at Texas Stadium against the Cowboys. Washington is putting it on Dallas. Theismann throws a touchdown pass. If I'm not mistaken, it was to Art Monk. And here comes the fun bunch. Well, two of the defensive backs for the Cowboys, Dennis Thurman and Everson Walls, get in the middle of them, and they're grabbing them and all this. They still do it over top of them.
Yeah.
The ultimate sign. That's got to be something we talk about. To doing it on the Star, and that's majorly to a Cowboys fan and majorly disrespectful. But doing the fun bunch over top of their defensive backs, yeah, that kind of rides in your craw a little bit too. I'm sure Cowboy fans to this day, if you were a Cowboys fan and remember that plot. But one of my most memorable games watching the Redskins do that to the Cowboys and doing the fun bunch. But yeah, the fun. And I mean, you talk about the icky shuffle. People would come to school. There were so many people that would come to school. At recess, and you could score, and all of a sudden you got the fun bunch. You got to do a high five. And how many times did you see high fives going on after that? They started a trend, and yeah, the fun bunch is my number one. I'll take the Homer thing for you, bud.
All right, and I even remember Steve. I mean, they did that for years because, I watched Washington as a kid, but I didn't really follow them, every single game, all that until, mid to late '80s, and then of course after. But I remember the posse doing it, so they were doing it well into the early '90s.
Well, see, Monk was there then. Monk had an injury that year, but Monk was still, like I said, he was part of the fun bunch that following year. So I guess, with Ricky Sanders and Gary Clark, he carried it on with the posse as well.
Yep.
But you think about these guys that were wide receivers that year for the Redskins, though. I mean, like we said, Alvin Garrett, he had maybe that great playoff run with the Redskins then. Virgil Say.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not a household name. Charlie Brown. I mean, Charlie Brown's, we're thinking about the Peanuts guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, these guys were a good group for that year. They did what they were supposed to. And another guy that we leave out of this list, and I got to put him in on this, Otis Wansley was the special teams guy. And a lot of people don't realize, but a Redskin fan, I'm not a Redskin fan. Like I said, I'll pull for, but that Super Bowl, the iconic play where Riggins breaks that tackle from Don McNeil on that fourth down and runs for the touchdown that ultimately was the game winner. If you watch that play, look at the lead block from Otis Wansley, number 39.
Yeah, they set it up.
He sets it up where Riggins can go one-on-one with McNeil, and that was not a matchup that McNeil wanted. So
no, I don't think anybody wanted it one-on-one with Riggo.
No, I mean, one thing. It's one thing for a linebacker. Maybe that's a little more fair, but you get a defensive back, a little cornerback going up against John Riggins when he's getting a full head of steam. It's not going to be good. McNeil did great just to get a hold of him and try to hang on for the ride for a little while, but
I've plays where Riggo blew up Randy White, and he's a big Cowboys. People think of the bust, Jerome Bettis, a little bit earlier, Christian Okoye, some of those big guys, and they were tough. But I'm gonna tell you, Riggo, I'm not old enough to remember the Larry Zonkas of the world, where my dad said that guy would drag three people down the field. But Riggo, I mean, he was a man. I mean, when you talk about men on that football field, I mean, he was an honorary hog, and they don't give that lightly. So
no, they were not going to give that to just anybody. Another thing, you mentioned Zonka and you mentioned Riggins, but there was another guy there that was just as tough, if not tougher than both of them. That was freaking Earl Campbell.
Oh God!
Wow! Oh my Lord! There's a reason, and he's paying the price for it now.
If his knees would have held up, he could have been. I mean, he is one of the all-time greats, but he would have had a lot of records at least. When he finished. Maybe not standing today, but he would have set some records.
Definitely. But going back and watching some of those old games, because as a Steeler fan, for a couple of years there, the big rivalry was with the Oilers. I mean, 2 AFC championship games in a row, and it always, even knowing that even knowing the outcome, it always worries me when I watch it because I'm like, they got Earl Campbell. I want to see what Earl Campbell does. But the most memorable game, I think Earl Campbell, if you watch, if you want to go see some really good Earl Campbell stuff, a Monday Night Football, I want to say it was in 78 against the Dolphins. They went through several jerseys, and everybody, of course, remembers the play against the Rams where they tore off his jersey and he's still going. I mean,
Oh yeah,
this guy was a hoss. And I mean,
you talk about the ultimate combination of size and speed. I mean, we look at Derrick Henry, and obviously he's a beast.
yeah,
But Earl Campbell was Derrick Henry before Derrick Henry was Derrick Henry. I mean, you're talking about a guy. I mean, they didn't test the 40 back then, but I'd be willing to bet he was a sub 4.5 guy at 250, 260 pounds.
I know Bum Phillips, who was the coach for the Oilers back then, was talking about, that he came in. The reporters were talking about Campbell coming to camp one year out of shape. What are you gonna do when it's 4th and long? He said, "Well, we'll let Earl Campbell run on 4th and long." I mean, it's guys like Campbell. I mean, like I said, you watch that Miami game, and you're talking about a combination of size and speed. He breaks a run to the outside to the sidelines, and he starts pulling away. I'm not talking about from linebacker. I'm talking about from defensive backs for the Dolphins.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
I mean, it's a shame, like you said, that his knees didn't hold up because he is one of the great NFL running backs, but he would be up there even higher. Like you said, set records because he was well on his way those years, and just the wear and tear just took a toll on him.
Yeah. He reminded me, at least, and I've only seen this guy in replays and on film, but he reminded me of Jim Brown of how good he was.
Yes. That was always the comparison.
Yeah.
Back in the day, they always compared Earl Campbell to Jim Brown, and I think I mean, if I'm Jim Brown, then I'm like, yeah, that would be, if after watching it, I would like, that's pretty good there. I'm flattered that I'm being compared to somebody like that.
Absolutely.
But I just enjoy watching stuff like you said, Earl Campbell, John Riggins, Jerome Bettis, another one that maybe didn't have the numbers, but you talk about a guy that was tough to bring down. Mike Alstott from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a freaking bowling ball. I mean, I always liked him. He, came out of Purdue, not really highly drafted, but man, he was a big part of Tampa Bay. Hate he wasn't around to get some of that Super Bowl love at Tampa Bay, though.
Yeah, he was really the last great fullback in the league.
Yeah.
I mean,
who's been since?
Kind of obsolete position these days, but
it's not about stats anymore with a fullback. It's about how well you block.
Yeah.
Look at a guy like Lorenzo Neal that was back in the day. It's not, like you said, the best. Who else is a big back out there besides Derrick Henry right now?
Yeah, I mean,
the closest thing I could see would be somebody, maybe a Josh Jacobs is close.
Yeah, but he's not very good anymore.
Zeke's been demoted to center. You remember that now?
Yeah.
That's sad too. That's sad too that his last play as a Cowboy, he was playing center.
Yeah, again, this is going to be a homer pick, but Brian Robinson's going to be good for Washington. He's a big dude. Yeah,
and Robinson coming back from what he came back from last year and having the year he did. I've actually, here in the last, I watch a guy on YouTube. I just started watching him in the last couple of weeks, and I'm hoping, I've sent a message to him, hoping to get him on the show. And I'm sure you did back in the day too. I don't know if you still do it. I loved collecting football cards.
Oh, I still do.
Yeah, I've started here lately buying a pack every once in a while. And there's a guy on YouTube called Wax Pack Dad, and he gets, he's got a little cash too. He gets up and he'll get like old packs that he buys from people. Like I've seen him get some from back in 79 to 80 and open them as they go. But I got to watch that. I said, you know what, I'm gonna pick up a pack. And one of the cards I picked up the other day was a Brian Robinson rookie card. So that went in plastic, and
Yeah.
it's something about, yeah. Hopefully we could get him if he's listening. I doubt he is, but if he's listening, we'd love to have you on the show to talk about some football cards, baseball cards, or whatever you want to talk about. Because I was back in the day, I was a big football card collector. I've got some pretty good stuff.
Mr. Don Leggett.
D.D. Sam's. D.D. Sam's. I don't know if you remember that. That was the name of his card company, D.D. Sam's.
I got my mom to take me to his house a couple times. Yeah.
Yeah, we went over there a few times ourselves, but the back of the day when I don't know if you remember when Upper Deck started.
Oh yeah.
89, first year, and everybody was after that Griffey Jr. card.
I got it in a plastic sleeve in my safe at home.
I do too. I actually had a complete set of that 89 year and the 90, but the 90 was not as great as that 89 year with Sheffield, Griffey, Randy Johnson. I mean, you had some great ones there.
That's back before cards got mass produced like they are now.
See, that's what I didn't understand about the whole card company deal. The more you mass produce, the less value you have on it. But then they would just jack up the price of the card and you'd have less cards in the pack. So
we got the luxury of eBay these days. Well, you can remember when we had to go to card conventions in Roanoke Rapids at the hotel.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a small, I don't know if you remember the card shop over there in the Hosky.
Yes.
Eads Leister and Ronnie Herron used to have it over there. They had comic books, they had cards in there. I would go over there when I worked in the Hosky. I would go over there and I'd spend a few dollars in there. I'll put it that way. Probably a few more than I needed to. But yeah, it was a great time for cards back then. I'll go back and look at. I've got some Jordan cards that I keep very close to heart. There, the Jordan cards. It's not a rookie or anything, but it's a early card of Jordans. So I don't even know where to check the values anymore. You remember we used to get the Beckett books?
Yeah, Beckett still comes out, but they don't have any of the older cards. I'll tell you a quick baseball card story. You remember when Jose Canseco was the big deal?
40-40, first 40-40 guy.
I had his 87 Donruss rated rookie, and it was shooting up the charts. It was valued at $100, and I had one. Went to card convention in Roanoke Rapids, and was walking around with it, just looking at different things. And a guy traded me straight up. I gave him that card. He gave me a Sandy Koufax rookie card. I still have it today. That card, in the condition it's in, I haven't gotten it graded because it's really expensive to do that. It's probably over $1,000 in the condition it's in. That Jose Canseco is worth about 50 cents.
So you made a good move that day.
I did. The guy probably thought I was a sucker at the time because.
Oh yeah, because Canseco was the best thing in the world.
He was going to be Babe Ruth,
Yeah. And it didn't happen that day.
He stopped juicing and he couldn't hit the ball.
Yeah, and he couldn't catch either. He had bouncing balls, off top of his head for home runs. Yeah, and look. Let me tell you, I loved baseball, especially back then. It is so hard for me to get into it now. Though I tried to get into baseball, and I'm an Orioles fan. I pull for the Braves as well, but it's just hard to get into it now. But I guess it's just like. I can get into that more than I can NBA basketball.
Oh yeah.
But
one of the for me, baseball is to me the season's way too long.
100 and I mean, is it
160 games? And am I going to get excited when my Braves go on a 5-game winning streak in May? That's not real.
Yeah, it's the finish is what you get excited about.
Yeah, I mean, but I remember as a kid, Stevie. Fathers and sons would, skip work and skip school on opening day for baseball.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And nobody does that anymore. But it's too many games for me.
Yeah, I will get into it. The last month of the season, into the playoffs. I'll really get it, and I'll follow along to see how far out Baltimore is. And here lately, it's been a lot. Last year was a big improvement for them.
Yeah.
There's a lot. People are looking for a lot out of them this year, but when you get to the last month and you find out who's going to be there, that's when I start getting into it.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
I'm like you. It is a very, very long season. So
yeah, I made a joke to somebody today. I said, "Hey guys, if the season ended today, the Braves are in the playoffs." And, hey, we still have 155 games to go.
Yeah, what is it on Major League? Where Rick Vaughn is up there stressing before the game in the locker room, and Jake Taylor comes up to us at easy. We've got about 160 more of these to go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
One of the great sports movies of all time, Major League, right there. I don't care
Well,
what.
that's a good one. We could do a top 10 or a top 5 of sports movies.
Yes, we've done. I'll get my list, and you get your list. And what we want to do here too, I'm thinking about doing, guys, is some watch-alongs. And we made it. Probably won't be able to show the movie on here, but we do a watch-along and talk about it as it goes, our favorite parts and some of the lines in there. I think we're going to start doing something like that, or maybe watch a game. Or like, let's take for instance, we can watch the Redskins Cowboys 1982 NFC Championship game. I don't know how many times Steve has seen that, but
quite a few. But I'd love to watch.
I could tell you where I was. That was on a Saturday. They actually had that game. That was strike year. It wasn't the playoffs that year. It was called the NFL tournament, and they just gave the top, whether you were. It didn't matter if you won the division or not. It was the top eight teams from each division.
Right.
And that was a Saturday they played that game. And I want to say maybe they played the AFC the next day. But I was at my cousin's house watching it, and there were some Cowboy fans there, and they left early. They left after Danny White got taken out of the game. So and I still have great memories of that, of my dad used to get into those games like like nobody I've ever seen before. I know you remember the 87 season, the playoff game against the Bears. The Bears jump out 10-0, and my dad was just stomping around the house. They suck. This ball game's over. And maybe 10-15 minutes later, Darryl Green crosses the goal line holding his ribs on a punt return. And my dad jumped up out of the seat. New ball game. I was like, oh my God, you said it was over. Come on.
2 of our 3 Super Bowls have come in strike season. So
that's what a lot of people say. They talk about that. It was strike season. But you still got to make that run in the playoffs.
Hey, the first couple of games in '87, we played with Scabs, and the Cowboys had their starters, and we beat them. So
that is the Replacements movie.
Yeah,
that's another great movie, sports movie. If you have not watched that movie is based on the Redskins Scab team, and I don't know if you saw the 30 for 30 they did about that Scab team as well. And those guys didn't get a ring or any kind of recognition. And I think, and I may be wrong, if I heard right, they may have got some kind of recognition on that Super Bowl team, because if they don't do what they do, have the record they do doing that strike, the Scab, whatever you want to call it, the Scab.
3-0.
The Redskins may not make the playoffs,
right?
Or may not get home field. I don't think they didn't have home field because they played at Chicago, but they may not have made the playoffs that year if it hadn't been for the Scab players.
Right, absolutely.
But just like you said, we talked about stuff that sticks in the Cowboys' craw. How much do you think that stuck in them when you had Tony Dorsett, you had Danny White, Randy White sitting across from guys you don't? There's no way you remember the guys that won the Redskins team's name right now, and that may be something I have to do. I may have to reach out to a couple of those guys to see if they'll do an interview on the show. That would be pretty awesome there.
Yeah.
But that's got to stick it. We could do an episode on things that Cowboy fans are still aggravated by to this day.
Oh yeah,
But
Absolutely. That was back when, the Washington Dallas rivalry. I mean, it was a hated, like the players hated each other.
that
Like
was
literally,
that was almost to the caliber of what the Steelers Ravens rivalries. Not
yeah,
and the Steelers Ravens rivalry has kind of gone down the last couple of years, but
Bears
the
Packers.
2010 to 2015, maybe even before
Yeah.
2000 to 2000 here in the last 2 years, that was one of the biggest rivalries and bad feelings on both sides of the ball that
Oh yeah.
I've ever seen.
Oh yeah.
When Hines Ward, Ed Reed, they go at it every game. You get Ben Roethlisberger's nose broken by not Nata, whatever his name was, Ray.
Haloti not.
Yes, I mean that game. I remember what, and then the freaking Polamalu play where he takes out Flacco, gets the fumble, and the Pittsburgh goes down and scores a game-winning touchdown on that. I've watched that so many times. But yeah,
Yeah.
we have to do some watch-alongs on games here. Maybe some ECU games. The Peach
Oh,
Bowl game would be a great one to watch. But yeah, maybe we can get my buddy Deion Johnson on for a watch-along and do that. That would be great there. There's some things we're going to work on the final score. But Steve, you've been sitting in your car for at least an hour, 20 minutes at least. But
hey,
thank
buddy.
you so much, bud. We appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely appreciate you having me, man.
Before I go though, I'm going to read Matthew's list. And this, I don't know if this is in any particular order. Uh, he's more of a well, he's actually got some. He's more of an individual uh, touchdown celebration guy. Juju Smith, the hide and seek from 2017.
Yeah,
The,
that was a good one.
yeah, that was a good one. Then the Kyle Rudolph, Duck Duck Goose from the Vikings in 2017.
Hilarious.
Dalvin Cook doing the limbo for the Vikings in 2018.
Yep.
Then he said anytime they do the dunk goalpost celebration, which have they outlawed that now? That's a flag, right?
I think that's a flag. I think
Yeah.
it's a thing is what they're quote flagging it for, but
Yeah, and Matthew is a diehard Giants fan, so this was probably number one on his list. The Victor Cruz salsa dance. That was actually on my honorable mention with the popcorn with T.O. doing the popcorn, and T.O. doing the Sharpie was on my honorable mention there. So and we're going to throw it back too. Even back, I haven't thought about this one, Steve, but this is an ECU player back in the day, in the early '80s. I don't know if you remember a guy named Henry Williams. They called in the NFL. They called him Gizmo. He was a short guy. He played for the Eagles.
Gizmo. Yep.
But he in 80 those that was it the 82 year or the 83 year ECU had the team that 8-3 lost to all the Florida teams on the road by like a combined 12 points or something like that, and did not make a bowl game. But you had like Ernest Biner, you had Terry Long, Henry Williams was one of the receivers and was probably the best punt returner in college football. I don't remember how many he did that, but every time he would score, he would do the flip in the end zone. Yeah. So that was big back then. That actually happened. We had a guy at Northeast that would do that, and I think that was '86. He would do a flip in the end zone. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, that's one of the forgotten ones.
Yeah.
But anyway, Steve, I'm gonna let you get out of here, bud. We appreciate you coming on and sitting in your car for this long.
This is for a living. This is nothing.
That's right. All right, guys, that is going to do it for tonight. You guys have a great week, and we'll see you next week on the final score.